Hola, comrades! Today's topic of interest, Super Mario Galaxy 2. Last week, we examined one of the most acclaimed games ever made, Super Mario Galaxy, and studied how it was a grandiose, baroque game at the forefront of a bold, dramatic change in gaming. This week, we take a look at the sequel to that game, and discuss how you can even follow up such an iconic entry in a franchise. But before that, let's talk about the circumstances that led to the development of this game. This is the first true mainline Mario game to receive a true mainline sequel since the original Super Mario Bros. And need I remind you that even the real Super Mario Bros. 2 was not released outside of Japan until it made it out in the form of the Lost Levels years later. Did Super Mario 64 receive a sequel? No. Did Sunshine? No. Did Super Mario World? No. Unless you count Yoshi's Island, which I don't because of the dissonance between the two games. Why Mario Galaxy? Well, it was partly because Mario Galaxy was a smash hit and the Wii was a smash hit, and to not release another mainline Mario game for the Wii would have been a horrible waste of a money-making opportunity. But why Mario Galaxy 2, and not some other Mario game? Well, first we must examine this practically. It takes far fewer man-hours to adjust a few elements of the core system of an old game and call it a sequel than it does to create a whole new system from scratch. This is the reason why Majora's Mask was made in such a short time, and why it turned out as strange as it did. After the success of Ocarina of Time, Nintendo gave a team 1 year to make whatever game they wanted, and Majora's Mask was the result. Mario Galaxy 2 was not made in as short a time, and a lot of back-breaking work went into its creation, but the same philosophy applies. However, the question remains, why another Mario Galaxy? It doesn't matter if it was easy to make another one if there wasn't reason to. So what's the reason? Well, in my video on the first Super Mario Galaxy, I argued that the game was Nintendo's attempt to create the best entry in the entirety of the Mario franchise by going all out, taking advantage of the relaxing of what were previously strict barriers to game development to craft an unparalleled Mario experience in scope and creative wizardry, without concerning themselves with the balance and restraint that added to the polish of previous Mario games. This attitude, that with the power of technology a new type of Mario game was possible, and all past concerns were moot, was still in vogue at the end of the first decade of the 2000s, so it's no surprise that they decided there was no further place to take the series after Mario Galaxy, so the most logical move after the release of the first game was to release a sequel. Their decision paid off, at least at first. This game was lapped up by critics despite being largely the same as the first. It is one of the best reviewed games ever. But time has not been as kind to Galaxy 2 as it's been to the original. This game has been forgotten. I haven't seen it talked about frequently, and when it is brought up, it's seen as inferior to the first Galaxy, which is honestly rather unfair. I'm far from the biggest defender of this game, but it is different enough. The presentation's better, the interface and controls are cleaner, the levels are smarter and better designed. The story's not as good, but it's not like anyone actually plays Mario games for the story. If you gave me the games at the same time and asked me to pick which one is better, I would choose 2 in a heartbeat. But because 2 is a sequel, our minds don't work that way. We see 2 in terms of 1, and judge it on how much it improved over the first game. And that is to the detriment of 2. The first game was supposed to be the pinnacle of the series, so where do you go from there? Eventually, if you're Nintendo, you knock the tower over and start from scratch and come up with a masterpiece like Super Mario Odyssey, but they weren't there yet. The key mechanic added was Yoshi, and the lovable creature who has sustained decades of abuse from the fat Italian plumber actually is implemented fairly well. The Yoshi portions of the game are incredibly innovative, and I wish there were more of them. They are the biggest reason why I prefer this game over the first. But it's unfair to ask Yoshi to carry this entire game on their shoulders. A sequel is defined by how it takes the elements of the original and expands on them. Godfather Part 2, Before Sunset, Empire Strikes Back, and How to Train Your Dragon 2 all do this extraordinarily well. Mario Galaxy 2 falls more on the Force Awakens end of the spectrum, though. It does enough differently and enough better to justify its existence, but it doesn't do enough to define itself as a distinct entity. I'm actually a bigger fan of sequels than most people. I much prefer them to reboots, at least. When you're making a sequel, you get a chance to build on the old and create something revolutionary, something fascinating. Galaxy 2 is a great game, but a bad sequel. It does not build on the ideas introduced in the first game. It just copies them. It's such a missed opportunity. Kind of like The Incredibles 2, which could have jumped ahead the same number of years that had passed since the first movie's release, and told a fascinating story about the passage of time and how it tears apart families and decays what used to seem so sure. But, nope! They picked up right after the first one ended. Terrific. Great. Okay, I'll stop going off on a tangent, and just say that if you ever get a chance to make a sequel, do something with it. Anyway, if you liked what you saw today, consider donating to my Patreon so I can produce even more wonderful content. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that Yoshi-rific stuff. Adios, comrades!